Good morning, and my name is Paula Kristmanson, and I am coming to you from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. We have an official languages policy in our province and our country. So although I prefer to use additional languages, I tend to use second language because of our funding agreements that we have with both the province and the federal government. In Canada, the official languages are English and French, but essentially we are responsible for programming and for research. That's our main foci. And when I say programming, I mean academic programs at the initial teacher preparation level. So we call that Bachelor of Education. It's a post-degree program in that you already have to have a degree beforehand. And we have specializations within that for English as an additional language teachers, as well as our main focus, which is French as a second language teachers. We also have Masters of Education programs. We also have PhD, doctoral students working with us at the Institute. The Institute has been involved with the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages since it came to Canada in the sort of early to mid 2000s. And so we have been alongside that process from the beginning, from the outset, from the beginning of us knowing anything about it and being invited to the ECML. So since then, which seems like not very long ago, but it is a long time ago now. I mean, it's 2025. So it's been, almost 25 years, not quite. We, as in Lyric and the folks here, after that big national conference, then it was just working alongside teachers at first who were just interested, and then alongside the Ministry of Education to figure out ways not just to use it directly in your classroom, but to use it as a framework for curriculum. So we have been there from the outset. I still am there. I still work with my colleagues at the Ministry of Education on a regular basis to develop new curricula. That was a little bit of a tricky thing in the very beginning, to allow people to see that although it's a validated, the descriptors are validated and they're specific, and the can-do statements are very specific, and they've been, as I said, validated. So people were very reticent to say, well, this seems more like language learning for what we call settlement language, and it took a while to work through that transition from what is the CEFR in a general sense, and how can that be what seemed to be a more adult settlement language kind of focus, how can that be used in the school setting? So that did take a while. It has taken a long time to be able to create materials, assessment materials, self-assessment checklists for teachers that we wanted to be sure that they still aligned with the CEFR and the global descriptors and the original can-do statements. So of course, what changes is the can-do statements, but you can't change them. You have to adapt them and retain the essence of the framework, because otherwise you go outside of what is intended for, say, somebody at pre-A1 level or an A1 level or an A1 plus. In addition to curricula, which are taught or delivered, people don't like that word, so I won't say it, in the context of a program, like an EAL program at the high school level, say a course. These are used in there's one for kindergarten to grade 2, there's one for grade 3 to grade 5, there's one for grade 6 to grade 8. So these were used by teachers working alongside newcomers, and they are very specific to the age and very specific and aligned with the CEFR, and it can be done 100%. I will sit here today and say that without question, although there's like some bumps along the way, but it absolutely is a common language now that all of our teachers, our teach language, use on a regular basis. People just throw out this language like it's like something everybody knows. So our attitude is we're small, but we're mighty, but the only way we are mighty is because we intentionally work together, even when it is super difficult. I believe that one of the superpowers that we have is a lot of us believe in the power of collaboration, even when it's challenging. So if you're teaching in French immersion, no matter what you're teaching, you have to think with a language lens. And this professional learning module that this asynchronous professional learning module that I said I was in the process of developing right now, that's part of that, is like that mentality. So always looking through the language lens, always thinking about the scaffolds, the linguistic scaffolds that might need to be in place so that all your learners are involved and have access to the learning. So that happens both in our French immersion classrooms. There are tons of teachers teaching language, of course, but there's tons of teachers teaching mathematics or civics or a variety of social sciences or physics or whatever. They also, this also exists now in New Brunswick for teachers in English medium schools and French medium schools, which are different from French immersion, by the way, that they are teaching now classes where they have 25%, 30%, sometimes 50% of their learners in their classroom are also acquiring the language of instruction. So this has changed the landscape of our province and of our schools. And that is why we try to go with this motto, we're all language teachers, but not just as a token motto, also giving the support that is required, the level of language required, and how to nurture teachers who are teaching content areas and are still working on their language themselves. This, of course, now happens in French second language classes. I mean, I'm in that. I was that when I started my career. I was, I'd studied in Quebec, so I'll just say it this way. I was an Anglo. That's what we were called back in the day, maybe still. But I was saying subject matter, and unfortunately subject matter that I didn't have expertise in, which happens to teachers all the time, in my second language, right? In my additional language, which is very tough. And I'm very empathetic to teachers. So we have now teachers teaching EAL who we are trying to make an effort to make our classes and our teachers, personnel more diverse, which means there are people teaching EAL who learned it as a foreign language and have immigrated to Canada teaching, and they're amazing. But they're still working on their language, as well as in French immersion classes and French second language. This has always been the case that there are people from other language backgrounds. It used to be all English that are teaching. It's not anymore, but teaching French. And so, yes, they have to be working on their language. But I think this is why I think the intercultural competency element is so important, because you can talk about your journey and you can share, if you're comfortable, some of your linguistic insecurities, but also that we're all on board this together, this train, we're all on it. Yes, we may stumble from time to time, but I really believe in that. And talking to your students about your journey and the fact that maybe you learned a word the night before when you were planning your content that you didn't know in Welsh or French or whatever language, and you're just like, oh, I learned this great word, and like celebrate it. And So in terms of benefits of using the CEFR for language programs in New Brunswick, I'll speak to my context. I would say the first benefit would be the ability to create a common language to describe language proficiency. That's one benefit. We talk the talk. Everyone knows what we're talking about now. It's taken a long time, but we can use a common language to describe language proficiency, which is amazing. Teachers and students are able to use the CEFR descriptors and the can-do statements, both learners and teachers, to articulate what one can do in the language. I think this is extremely beneficial. It allows for the creation of coherent assessments grounded in a validated proficiency framework. Benefit, I think. Another benefit would be the action-oriented and strength-focused or strengths-based nature of, or what I believe to be, the action-oriented and the strengths-focused features or nature of the CEFR, and all the related pedagogical approaches to that. It has given, I believe, the benefit is that it's given teachers and students specific objectives for learning so that pedagogical activities can be centered on authentic-ish, even if the authenticity is an imagined world, authentic tasks, authentic-ish. And it's school, so we have to always say, we put the ish on the end. A center of excellence, or whatever you call it, for lifelong Welsh learning is an excellent idea, and maybe it can combine some of the things we've been talking about today. So here's my advice for what it's worth, having lived this journey and still living it. One, collaboration, even when it's difficult, is essential. If you create, which sounds like you are, an institute or a center for Welsh lifelong, I love that, lifelong Welsh learning, it would be important to bring educators, leaders, researchers to the table, parents, perhaps, if that fits, to have these collaborative conversations. One, if you decide, and I think you have, but I don't know for sure, to use a CEFR as a guiding framework, for your curriculum development, ensure that the framework is well understood by everyone. Build the curriculum and the assessment tools and the instructional materials in a way that that always comes back, right? It's connected. All your outcomes are connected to the CEFR, the CEFR, in some way, and try to always come back and make sure the validation is good, so that but I think there's so many materials out there that are validated and that are used that that won't be hard. But when you adapt things, you just need to keep coming back just to make sure that you have, been loyal to the original intention because of the levels, right? Yeah, so make sure you have a good understanding before you launch into it, not you specifically, but any folks that are involved. And the third one I said is, and I encourage, in using the CEFR, I do encourage you, all the documents you create, all the companion documents, all this curriculum, to adapt these to your specific linguistic and cultural context. That's super important. Don't leave that aside, because that's not right for you, I believe. So you're constantly coming back to what are our big beliefs and goals about Welsh language learning and lifelong Welsh language learning, and then just making sure you're sticking with the validated framework. And then the last one I'll say is support teachers with opportunities to collaborate and build resources together. You can create templates, examples that use a springboard for creative sessions and let the creativity fly. Support for teachers may come in the form of linguistic support, perhaps, if that's what they want or need, but also, and those can be professional or social activities that can build a community, which relationships are super important, and enthusiasm for language teaching and learning, which will then transfer into these creative sessions where we start to dream about the ways we want to, yes, be loyal to the CEFR, but also do the things that the Welsh community wants to do for the country and for the individuals living there, because it's so identity based. So never forget that those two elements are crucial if you're using the CEFR, but also wanting to make sure that that's the front and center. Welsh language learning, Welsh language revitalization, all of that stuff. So those are my three things, I think.